Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The entire country is beaming with pride. India is all set to have another date with the moon, and we are all hoping this one will go a little bit better than last time. So Chandrayaan 3 has been launched by the ISRO team today. The satellite has separated and all the parameters are functioning within normal ranges. Indian scientists have set their sights on landing Chandrayaan 3 in the challenging terrain of the moon's unexplored South Pole one more time. The spacecraft's journey from Earth to the moon is estimated to take approximately a month, with the landing anticipated to occur on August 3. So keep your fingers crossed. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's on a two-day visit to France, has called the mission a new chapter in India's space odyssey. Chandrayaan 3 represents India's commitment to scientific excellence and technological innovation, but also embodies the Made in India push. The success of this mission would not only open new avenues for space exploration, of course, but will also strengthen India's position in the global space community, solidifying its presence and contributions in the field. We will get you more of what this means for India with our special guest joining us in just a bit. First, here is more of what you need to know about ISRO's third moon mission. So Chandrayaan 3 liftoff is done, and now it's going to be a 6-week journey to the moon. The launch is successful. Chandrayaan 3 has also been placed well in orbit, but remember, there are multiple more stages that are remaining, and all of them are crucial. This mission aims to put a lander and a rover on the moon for exploration of the moon's surface. Remember, this is ISRO's second attempt for this soft landing on the moon, and if we succeed, India will become the first country to land on moon's South Pole, which is completely unexplored. Here are 5 reasons why Chandrayaan 3 is key for India, for more reasons than one. First of all, it shows India's tech prowess and ambitions in space exploration. India could become only the 4th country to land a spacecraft on moon overall. This will foster a sense of national pride and boost the scientific community's morale. This also provides avenues for international collaboration and partnerships, and ISRO already is doing a stupendous job in that regard when it comes to pushing satellites up in orbit. But this also promotes indigenous research and development. And why do we talk about indigenous research and development? Because ISRO is doing this on their own. And remember, ISRO has already made a name for itself for managing missions of this precision and such scale to the moon and beyond on shoestring budget. So 615 crore rupees have been spent on Chandrayaan 3 mission. In contrast, NASA's Artemis 1, the first unscrewed mission of the Artemis program aimed at returning humans to the moon and establishing a sustainable presence, had a budget of over 3,000 crore. India's first interplanetary mission, Chandrayaan, has been developed at a budget of just 450 crore. There are Bollywood movies today that have a bigger budget than this. This stands as the world's most economical Mars mission. In comparison, NASA spent 4 times that amount on a similar mission. So our big first debate or discussion that is coming in, Chanda Mama, as the moon is revered in our folklore, in our mythology, in our history, is getting a visitor. And hopefully, this time the visitor will enter the door.
Normal. Chandrayaan 3 has started its journey towards moon. So let me wish all the very best to Chandrayaan 3 for its further journey towards moon.
The entire nation is feeling proud about it. Also because as we look forward to the next 25 years, that Amrit Kaal in India would be reaching a place. I think this heralds the beginning of that, the ascent of that.
Dr. Suresh Nayak is former Group Director of ISRO joining us. Pramod Kale is former ISRO scientist. Arvind Paranjpe is Director, Planetarium Nehru Center, and Gohar Raza is also an Indian scientist. I do thank all of you for joining us. Let me go across to Dr. Suresh Nayak first. It will be a few tense days, isn't it? Because there are multiple stages left and we'll only know the progress of the success towards the end of August when the landing is supposed to take place, and that's the mark at which we failed last time. What do you think will be the most crucial stage from now on?
Well, actually, I will say the first important and crucial stage of putting the spacecraft in the orbit precisely at the right altitude and with the right velocity, that has been obtained. And heartiest congratulations to the ISRO scientists.
Yes.
And in being an ex-ISRO scientist, and whole India will be very proud of it. Okay, because you can see that it was a giant Bahubali vehicle, and everything went as per the copybook style, clinical style, and there was absolutely no deviation.
Okay.
And as it was mentioned, actually, this particular vehicle has so many improvements have been made, and the quality and the reliability has been increased so much now that it is human rated. That means it is ready for the Gaganyaan mission.
Okay.
You know, so that is the most important thing in the beginning. And now, of course, we have to do orbit raising.
Yes.
At present, it is in the lowest point from the Earth is about 170 kilometers, but that will more or less remain same. And the farther point has to be increased. And another thing is the velocity with which it was launched in the orbit right now is 10.2 kilometers per second. But that we have to increase it to 11.2 kilometers per second. Then only it will leave the Earth's orbit and it will start going towards moon. That is called escape velocity. Okay, so I'm sure that that thing will happen in a week or 10 days, and then it will start its journey towards moon. That is called a translunar orbit. Okay, and afterwards, the most crucial, the second crucial stage is lunar insertion.
Yes.
So you see, what we have to do is escape velocity of the moon is much less than Earth's velocity. So if you want to successfully insert our spacecraft into the lunar orbit, then we have to lower the velocity actually to less than escape velocity of moon. And then the moon will capture our spacecraft into its orbit. And then since that orbit will be elliptical and its apogee, farthest point from the moon, will be too high, we have to bring it closer to moon. And here the process is reversed. And by firing the engines properly, we will reduce its orbit. Finally, it should settle down in 100-kilometer circular orbit around moon. So that will be next important stage.
Right.
And afterwards, another important stage will be separation of the propulsion module from the lander module, right? So that will be done by propulsion module. And incidentally, I wanted to mention one more thing.
Yes.
Now onwards, in fact, about 10 minutes before the launch onwards, everything is computerized. Okay, till the lander lands on the moon, the rover comes out, and then of course there will be semi-autonomous human intervention also will be there from the Earth station. Okay, so what I was saying is the second important point was separation.
Yes, absolutely. That has been the crucial stage
of the lander.
In the past where we did not succeed. Let me bring in and for opening comments all of our other guests as well. Pramod Kale, I'm coming to you. How proud is the Indian space scientist community today? What does this mean for you?
I think it's a fantastic achievement which has happened today, and this will be giving us very good important information regarding the surface of the moon, how the heat transfer will take place, how if there is any earthquake or quake activity on the moon. Also, with the laser retroreflector which has been put there, we will be able to actually get a very much better and accurate distance measurement from Earth to the moon. And that actually will tell us as to how the orbits are changing and how it could impact on the tides which are taking place in the sea also. So scientifically, this particular mission will give us very much needed information regarding the surface of the moon. And since we are going very close to the south pole of the moon, it should actually give us some indication whether what has been suspected, whether we could actually find either liquid water or
yes.
ice also in
Yes.
those particular shaded areas.
Yes,
So this will
absolutely.
be a very good opportunity to get this kind of an information. And I know that a large number of changes have been done for the lander particularly, so that it is now much more robust. It has a much larger amount of fuel availability, and the software has been fully updated. And with the orbiter of the Chandrayaan 2, we have got very good data regarding the landing site, and that data will be utilized. And therefore, in this particular mission, there is no specific orbiter, and yet the propulsion module, which will remain in the lunar orbit, will give us very good idea regarding the sunlight that gets reflected from the surface of the Earth, because Earth is the only known planet where we have got life on the planet, and from those particular signatures, we will be able to learn if we have to look for planets outside of the solar system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So two important things you've mentioned. Of course, the importance of the south pole of the moon, because it's uncharted, but everybody wants to know, and this is why this will be important for the entire world. Arvind Paranjpe, I want to come to you with that. The reason this will be important for the entire world is because nobody's landed on the south pole of the moon. And what we find there could change all of our lives.
That is absolutely correct, what you said, Shivani Gupta. It was a really right point that you have put here.
Yes.
You see, I would also like to add, because our three other guests are scientists themselves. I am basically outreach person managing the planetarium. So from that perspective, I would like to tell you two things. That today we had unprecedented response from public at the planetarium, and they enjoyed it. And they all lauded that wonderful work that ISRO scientists are doing. And at that too, at what we call the shoestring budget. Now you talked about the southern part of the moon. So I'm basically an astronomer, so I would like to add that the way moon is placed, or when the Earth, moon, and sun are placed, the southern part of the northern region or southern region of the moon do not get as much sunlight as one would get during at the equatorial region of the moon, and therefore moon will be in the southern part where the lander would land, Vikram lander would land. That area is in a very cold and dark region, and astronomers, we believe that the moon has formed because some Mars-like object came, hit the Earth, and part of Earth is gone, and then it frozen into the moon. Okay, so that means it is telling us that yes, there must be water, and which was found during the Chandrayaan 1 mission by our Indian scientists. I mean, we found that water on the surface of the moon. So this mission becomes a very important one to understand the soil, to understand moonquake. Like on Earth, what we have earthquake, similarly other planets also have quake that is taking place inside their central region. So by studying these quakes, you would find how the inside structure of that particular object is. And thirdly, and one thing, thirdly, I would also like to point out that a very interesting experiment or other instrument that would be placed on the surface of the moon, and which is a refractor, where you send a laser beam from Earth, and then when the laser beam comes back, you find the distance. So accurately, the distance between moon and the Earth can be calculated, and therefore one would try to understand how the moon is rotating around the Earth. So there are very interesting things which are taking place. And lastly, I would also say that our experience is going to be very beneficial when NASA sends its Artemis mission with the human beings, that NASA is planning to land human beings on the southern part. So this information is also going to be very useful for future
for others
missions.
as well. You know, so
We
that's
can talk
precisely
later.
why this could be so instrumental in, you know, raising the profile of Indian scientists, of ISRO and India at large in the space exploration field, where, you know, ISRO has already done a remarkable job. I want to go across to Gohar Raza as well. You know, Dr. Arvind Paranjpe mentioned something very interesting. What missions like this does to the ordinary public, their mood, their morale, and also their interest into the field of space exploration, that in itself is a high reward, you know, when India mounts these explorations. Gohar Raza.
In one of the interviews where I was interviewing a first-rate, very remarkable scientist of India, I asked him, why did you join science? And he said that Nehru had come to our school and said that it is good for the country if the younger generations study science. So what triggers some young mind to join science and explore scientific vistas? There are many things that happen. One of the things that can lead younger generation to achieve heights of science is a mission like this.
Yes.
Because the entire country, as was just now said, that younger ones got very excited about today's event. Yeah, this country has had always, and my surveys have shown repeatedly, has had tremendous respect for knowledge, for science, and for modern education. And I'm emphasizing modern education, which has science, physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc. in it. So I think that these events are extremely important for the country, where those forces which are anti-science, and I have no shame in saying that in this country or any country, there are always forces which are anti-science. Anti-science attitude is pushed back. And therefore, all the branches of science are likely to flourish when such events happen, and the scientific community touches the zenith
Yes,
of
absolutely.
knowledge,
Absolutely.
touches the boundaries of knowledge. And I'm very happy that both these things have been mentioned by my colleagues, that on the one hand, we are going to see that our scientific community has mastered technology. But that is not the only mission. There is a lot of scientific information and questions that will be answered once the data comes.
No, absolutely.
and is
That's the mission
analyzed.
for science, isn't
And
it? To give us
therefore-
answers where we don't know what is either happening or how something functions or how it's made. And this is exactly why these missions are so important, not just for India, but actually for humanity. I want to go back across to Dr. Suresh Nayak one more time. And I want to understand from your point of view as a former scientist with the ISRO, what does it, according to you, what does this really mean for India? Because, you know, like I said, ISRO has been doing a stupendous job. They also do it in budgets that baffles the world. So what does it take for ISRO to do this, to achieve this? And what would this mean for India?
Well, actually, you know what this means for India is an extremely important step in the commercialization of satellite launching services in a greater extent, to a greater extent. So far, what we have been doing is actually much less. You know, the world market of satellite launching service runs into the actually crores and thousands of crores. Okay, there's billions of dollars,
Right.
and India is getting hardly 2 to 3% share of that market presently. So we have now got a very large rocket, and its capacity is something like 10-ton carrying satellites, and we have proven to the world that it is one of the most reliable rockets. And as you said, it is cost competitive. we always have our rockets and satellites at extremely low cost rates. And that is how actually now the developed countries also are coming to us for launching their satellites. In fact, when I was looking after this activity of satellite making to a certain extent of the part, there we used to go to foreign countries to launch our satellites. Okay, now reverse thing has happened, and that's a great thing for India, and really makes us proud.
Can I just ask you, can you put it in perspective? A lot of our guests have already talked about the significance of it, but can you put it in perspective how difficult it is to achieve something like this, to reach this landmark, to land on the moon, and that too on the south side of the moon?
Well, actually, see, this field of space technology is extremely hazardous, okay? Because you can take care according to your capabilities and to your understanding 100%, all right? But the factors which makes it risky and unreliable are actually, one thing is this is a one-shot affair. Once you launch a rocket or a spacecraft, and if something happens, that is the end of it. There is no way to go and repair it, unlike the ground equipment. Right. Second thing is the environment in space. Environment in space is so merciless that it doesn't allow for a single mistake. Okay. Third thing is it is extremely expensive business.
Yes.
Now you can see this mission is costing 615 crores, and imagine if it would have gone sort of haywire, then all the money is wasted. Another thing is all the eyes of the world are on this mission. Okay.
Yes.
And when something really unfavorable happens, we really feel very bad about it. The whole world feels actually about that, and what India is doing, how is their technology, whereas Indians feel so proud. You know, I have myself realized, because I interact with so many students, that after Chandrayaan 1 success, there was a wave of enthusiasm in the students towards space technology, and the number of students coming towards ISRO, applying towards ISRO increased tremendously. Even IIT students.
No, exactly. So, that's a reward in itself, isn't it?
It creates an atmosphere of inspiration to the young generation.
Absolutely. That's a reward in itself, as I was mentioning, and that is why you need to keep doing this, because your future generations need to be inspired to continue to do this. Can I just go across to Mr. Kale once again? Suresh Nayak talked about the pressure that you feel, and it's like a hit or a miss thing. You don't get repeat chances, and there's so much money involved. All the eyes are on you. How do ISRO scientists handle the pressure, especially for a mission like this?
When we consider this Chandrayaan 3 mission, one good thing is that we are using the liquid fuel in our propulsion module as well as in the lander also. So we can take a step, find out exactly how it happened, and we can actually measure the change in the velocity that has happened, and based upon that, we can then take the next corrective action. So that's why we are going in this particular direction, that it is launched now, but it will take almost up to 5th of August for it to reach to the orbit of the moon.
Yes.
Then we have to make certain that from the elliptical orbit, we have to get into the circular orbit close to the moon at about 100 kilometers or so. And then the final step has to be taken, because that step is definitely irreversible. Once we start reducing the velocity in the orbit of the moon, then we have to really go ahead and land on the surface of the moon. The software that has now been built up in the lander allows us a certain amount of leeway in reduction of the velocity, and the exact reduction, what has happened, can also be measured, since we have the ability to use the laser velocity meter for this particular mission. And now in this mission, they are using 2 of them. whenever we launch a satellite, yes, the pressure is there on the people who have made the launch vehicle, people who have made the satellite, and it has to function in its orbital phase successfully and actually result in a successful mission. So the pressure is there, but when we were working in this kind of a field, definitely we were used to this pressure. We knew that something can go wrong, but we can take care of it in the next mission. And that's why we don't plan just only one mission. The missions have to be planned as a series of missions. And therefore, we will have the ability to respond to any of the failures and come back.
Obviously, that's how science is. I understand, Mr. Kale, what you're saying. Obviously, you have to keep improving on your last effort.
Yeah.
And every mission, even if it is quote-unquote unsuccessful, gives you enormous data to make your next mission more successful. But please, as a human being, tell me, how do you deal with those disappointments? Because, you know, when last time Chandrayaan 2 did not succeed, we saw we saw Mr. Sivan, for example, with tears in his eyes. So one can always feel for that.
Yes, it always happens. When I was project director for the INSAT satellites, our first satellite, when it was launched, there was a problem. It succeeded up to a point, but then it didn't live up to the full life, and its life ended much earlier. The pressure was there, but we knew that we will have the chance to correct our failure and get into the INSAT 1B, and it succeeded. Now, all these years, whenever we have done something first time, it's very rare that we have succeeded. It was really excellent that we succeeded in Chandrayaan 1 as well as in Mangalyaan. But some successes like this don't come all the time.
Yes.
So the pressures are there, but when the pressures come up, all of us, we knew that we have to live up to that kind of a pressure and proceed further.
Okay. I have final time. I'll go across our panel. Arvind Paranjpe, coming one more time. Could you explain a little bit more of what you were talking about, the interest from the public? What is it that they were so excited about, and what really brings joy to the public when a mission like this happens?
You see, one important aspect of public being joyous, and that is that they belong to this country. I mean, everybody is happy that India will be the fourth nation to land on the moon, first nation to be on the southern hemisphere of the moon. So these are the very important factors. But a few minutes ago, when you talked about the money part of it, okay, I would like to point out to anyone who's likely to criticize ISRO for putting so much of money, or government to put so much of money. See, after all, I see this is as a rocket science, and the outcomes of putting this money are tremendous. You may not see it immediately, but let me give you a couple of examples. That mobile phone that we are using now are actually outcome of space missions, because people wanted to have wireless communication, short wireless communication between the two. The other one was a very famous example is the firefighting mission. You see, space mission want to protect their instruments, protect their rockets, and a beautiful system was developed by which you could protect yourself from such a hazardous environment. And the same material can be used in the firefighting. People are using that.
Yes.
And third important aspect of it is that ISRO is not just doing by itself. ISRO has involved too many private parties to take part in this, private enterprises, private players to take part. In effect, the entire country grows, because you are developing something which is a rocket science, and then it is in the private sector, people are developing. So eventually it comes to public.
Yes.
So it is not just that you are putting this kind of a money and then going to rocket to moon and coming back, and it doesn't go. And lastly, I would also tell you, you had asked a question. Okay, you go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Please finish.
Something?
Then I'll go to Mr. Gawar Raza.
Okay. So may I continue for 30 seconds?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. So last thing, as Dr. Nair was saying, Sureshji was saying, that what it means, just imagine I'm sitting in Mumbai and someone in Delhi, and, we play marbles. So I could be off by a few factors of length, but you're playing a marble. Sitting here, I throw a marble, and then it goes to Delhi, and exactly at where it's supposed to land, there it lands. That's the kind of technology one is talking about.
Yes.
It's an enormous thing. This is what we pass on, as is Raja Saab said some time back, that we pass on this to our younger generation, and after all, they will be the ones who will be probably landing someday on the moon.
Yes, we are obviously looking for Indians to land on the moon as well soon. Mr. Raza, you want to add something to that about the phenomenal impact of a mission like this? And I do thank Mr. Paranjpe for mentioning how you should not look at it from a narrow prism of, oh, what are we going to achieve if we go to the moon? All of this exploration ultimately leads to other scientific advancements as well, which are more consumer friendly and more directly related to the consumer. But please, Mr. Raza, I have final minutes if you want to add something for a minute.
Yeah, I just want to repeat what Iqbal has said. सितारों से आगे जहां और भी हैं, अभी इश्क के इम्तिहान और भी हैं. I'm sure ISRO is thinking about many more and many difficult projects in the future. And the most beautiful thing about ISRO is the continuity. Something is thought about 20 years back, and the younger generation of scientists who come to ISRO, and after that older generation retires, there is still a continuity, because this continuity is required in science and technology both. And this beauty of ISRO is unique. Yeah, there is, I find it also in Atomic Energy Commission, but in ISRO, a project is completed maybe in 20 years, maybe in 30 years, but generations after generations, scientists are at work.
Yes, absolutely.
And the best thing that could happen in today's world and in today's India for the future, that ISRO more and more starts emphasizing on scientific part of it and involves universities, colleges and even schools. Then we'll be able to say that we have expanded the horizon of rocket science into space science.
Okay.
Because all sciences are going to aid and help develop the space sciences.
Yes.
Only technology cannot do it. Maybe
Fair
it can capture market, but beyond that, we have to have science.
Okay. I do want to ask a final question each to Dr. Suresh Nayak as well, and to Mr. Kale. You know, there's been a little bit of a controversy, Mr. Nayak, online, because some of our ISRO scientists who were helming this mission went to the temple and offered prayers. And there were some who criticized them, saying that, you know, if you are offering prayers and depending on quote-unquote God, then it's not scientific temperament enough. What do you make of that? What is your comment as a scientist yourself? Mr. Nayak, why don't you go first, then Mr. Kale can respond.
Yeah, I see. Exactly, I was coming to that there is maybe 2% element of luck in this. That is what I was coming to. And the risk is enormous. And I was also praying, to be frank. And I want to share with you one interesting thing. Not that we have Americans as ideals, but in NASA also, they observe certain auspicious things at the time of launch. For example, groundnuts. Groundnuts eating is considered very auspicious there. And groundnuts are kept at various places. And scientists, you know, they think that is an auspicious thing that will help them to achieve success. And I know right from Professor Dhawan, Satish Dhawan, who was the chairman, when he went to USA, because USA space shuttle was going to launch our first satellite there, INSAT-1. Okay, so I think the whole team took with them a coconut, and actually they broke it just before the launch of the vehicle.
Right, right. So you're saying there's no oddity or there's no contradiction, Mr. Kale. Would that be correct to say there's no contradiction in being a scientist and also praying to God?
There is no contradiction. When I was at NASA also, I had seen that at the time of the launch, most of the people would cross their fingers and keep them crossed for a certain amount of time. It's the same kind of a thing. I think the most important thing is the going to the temple is to go there to give the thanks.
Yes.
not just simply to wish for the success of something, because that is in our hands. And we just simply go to the temple to give our thanks for giving this opportunity to actually come up to this particular level of science and technology. And I think that's very important from the point of view that even the scientists are also all human beings. We are all from the same country, and each person has got his own belief, and everybody should respect that.
Yes, absolutely. I think there should be respect for everybody's belief, and that's the most important thing. Thank you. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. I've run out of time. Let's keep our fingers crossed. As one of our guests said, all the country will be, and August 23 could be D-Day for us. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the Bastille Day celebrations in Paris as the guest of honor today. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed his pride in welcoming Prime Minister Modi as the guest of honor. He further emphasized that India and France will play a decisive role in the future as strategic partners. The parade included, remember, Indian soldiers marching down the iconic Champs-Élysées Avenue, and the Indian Air Force's Rafale jets also featured in the fly park. That's not all. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also become the first Indian PM to be conferred with the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor, France's highest civilian and military honor. According to a statement by the Ministry of External Affairs, the Prime Minister expressed gratitude to the President of France for this exceptional honor on behalf of the people of India. The Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor, bestowed by France, is another notable addition to a series of prestigious international awards and honors that have been given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi from various countries. A quick check of the Prime Minister's schedule today. Remember, today is the second and final day of his engagements in France. So he has two more big engagements today, and both of them are important. At 8:30 p.m. India time, there is a ceremonial reception, a tete-a-tete, a delegation-level talk, and also a joint statement to look forward to. And then at 10:30 p.m. later tonight, the Prime Minister will attend a CEO forum to talk more business. Remember, this has also become one of the hallmarks of his international visits. One, the chat with the diaspora, and then, of course, meeting with the business leaders. So speaking of the chat with the diaspora, there is one gift that the Prime Minister offered to all Indians, especially the ones who travel from India to France for vacations. India's most successful payment system, UPI, will now be used in France. Prime Minister Narendra Modi made this announcement while addressing the Indian diaspora in Paris. Allowing UPI in France will open up huge possibilities in the way Indians can spend. UPI will be able to do away with cumbersome forex cards, for example, or the need to carry foreign currency. UAE, Bhutan, Nepal are just some of the countries that have already adopted the UPI system. So it's time to say bonjour UPI in France, one other way in which India is making a mark on the world. To talk more about the significance of the UPI move in France, I'm joined by Mr. Ritesh Shukla, who is CEO, NPCI International Payments Limited, which is NIPL. How significant, Ritesh, do you see this move of France adopting the UPI payments, making it easier for all kinds of people, especially Indians traveling there, to make these payments via their phones? Because it has been adopted already by several markets, including some in Europe. But how important do you see this as a development?
So I think here there are two aspects we'd like to highlight. One is the existing flows. That means, tourism that's happening from India to Europe, and definitely France is amongst the largest attractor of the inbound tourism. I'm told that Indians are the second largest group of people who visit Eiffel Tower after Americans. So it's a significant kind of a milestone. When this partnership goes live, Indians using their different UPI powered apps such as Bhim UPI will be able to transact using apps from India and carry out their merchant payments seamlessly in a very important tourist market for Indians. That's one. The second aspect is, as India is growing and is likely to be, third largest economy in times to come. That would mean that would mean higher per capita income.
Yes.
And in return, that would mean that more discretionary spend happening. And when people get into discretionary spends, I think traveling for holidays is one of the very, very important aspects. So one is we are solutioning for the existing flow, and we are also kind of catering or designing for the flows that will happen in future because of the economic growth that is going to happen in India. So it's very, very significantly important for us, this opportunity.
So one thing, Ritesh, that everybody would want an answer to is exactly when does this start? Could you give us a sense of the timeline?
We are still, a few months away because one is right now we have connected the two, platforms. Now we have to, get merchants onboarded on the platform, and this would mean for some legwork on the French side. So we'll work with our partner to kind of help them early onboard the consumers on the platform so that our travelers coming there can seamlessly enjoy this. And on the India side, I think we'll have to work with banks to be able to offer this service to more and more consumers when they travel.
Okay, so you're saying there's some legwork required, but for the benefit of our viewers, just so that there is no confusion, I want to understand how will this work in the sense that are there going to be any extra charges, for example, for Indian consumers when they pay via their phones, when the currency is converted from rupees, or is there any carrier charge or added service charge when they use this?
So if you look at today, what's happening is that today when people are traveling outside, primarily there are two ways that they are paying. One is they buy foreign currency in India through the exchange houses and, take cash foreign currency and use that for carrying out their transactions. The other is they use credit cards. And there are, economic aspects associated with these two kind of channels as we speak today. But when we are looking at, enabling UPI usage, I think we are going to create advantages for the consumers from India when compared to these two kind of channels. And of course, we'll have to get into specifics as we go live. But I think the guiding principles, we are looking at adding value, not so that more and more people adapt, because our focus is to generate scale and drive adoption like the way UPI has done in India in terms of the domestic payment landscape.
You already answered this a little bit about why you think, France is bringing on the UPI payments, because you said that the second largest tourist group to Eiffel Tower, for example, is Indians. So they have that reason to do so. But I do want to understand in a broader picture, why is it that so many countries are so keen to get the UPI on? Is it because the Indian tourist market is so high, or India is becoming, a greater financial power? Why do you think they're interested in UPI?
So, any country that is dependent on tourism as a sector, would want to create enablers for more and more tourists to come. And today, if you look at the performance of UPI in India, UPI is doing about between 7 to 8 billion transactions a month. And if that's the number we have, and it's growing like 8 to 9% on a month-on-month basis. With that kind of growth, anybody who's serious about inbound tourism market is going to get attracted because it helps them create, more business opportunities for the tourism sector there, which would mean, the hotels, the restaurants, the shopping, places, malls, and all. So it is in their business interest to create avenues enabling Indian travelers to be able to spend using their most preferred payment method in India.
Absolutely. And UPI, of course, is one of those payment methods. As you said, it is the most preferred, but it is actually a leader by leaps and bounds. My final question to you, could you give us a sneak peek, if at all you can reveal to us what lies in the future? What more markets are you looking at? Which countries are likely to adopt the UPI soon?
So, Shivani, what I would like to highlight here is that we have a strategy in place, which actually means that we have identified key markets which are of relevance and importance to Indians, and we are in different stages of discussion with these markets.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes a little longer for a certain market than the other because systems are wired differently, they are created differently. So you have to create a common language for the systems to talk. And once you develop that language, then the message exchange to enable payments becomes easier. So we are in different phases of discussion, different markets,
Okay.
but we have clearly identified markets that are of importance and relevance to Indian travelers, and we are working on these markets with full commitment and ownership.
All right. I won't press you any further. I know you're not going to give me any more details, but Ritesh Shukla, thanks a lot for joining us on the big achievement by UPI. More and more international countries, foreign countries adopting the Indian payment system. What an achievement for India. And that makes it a great day. There's, of course, the Chandrayaan 3 and, of course, this announcement as well. Moving on, we're getting some breaking updates coming in. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has met with his Canadian counterpart, Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, in Jakarta. The External Affairs Minister has underlined the importance of ensuring the security of Indian diplomats and the need to firmly combat incitement to violence. Remember, these cases have been coming to light with posters with names and images of Indian diplomats being released in several countries, including Canada, by Khalistani groups threatening even violence against them. My colleague Abhishek is joining us for more on this. Abhishek, one more attempt by India to get Canada to act.
Of course, and we have seen, kind of dissatisfied actions that Canadian side has, so far taken against these extremist and radical groups of peace. In fact, the Canadian High Commissioner in Delhi was also summoned by Indian Foreign Ministry recently to raise the matter. We have seen recently Khalistani protesters, they have put the photographs of Indian diplomats, including High Commissioner to Canada, Sanjay Verma, Toronto Consular General Apurva Srivastava, and other senior diplomats, and they have tried to put the blame of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, another extremist, ideologue of Khalistan, who was also had a the responsible person for his death. And since then, they have been threatening to attack this. There has been heckling with Indian diplomats, and India has said that, External Affairs Minister has said recently that these are the issues that are now being slow action by the Canadian government because there are apparently domestic political issues that are not letting Canadian authorities act strictly against these elements. In that background, this meeting holds very lot of significance that External Affairs Minister has not only met with the Canadian counterpart but also raised the issue of safety and security of our diplomats in Canada.
Okay, all right. Abhishek, I'll leave it at that. I do thank you for joining us. Let's wait and see what exactly happens as far as action from Canada is concerned. We're seeing that there has been some heightened action in at least some of these other countries where Khalistanis are based. Time for a very short break. We'll get you more details from the national capital flood situation now. Lives are at risk. The deluge has already killed 3 children. We'll get you more details in just a bit.
There is no much variation in altitude. This stage will add to the relative velocity immensely.
अब हम उड़ान से 1 मिनट की दूरी पर
-50 seconds.
All sequences armed.
Stage ready. -45 seconds. -40 seconds.
L110 VHPP open. MOV 79 open.
-35 seconds. -30 seconds.
Real-time programs activated.
-25 seconds.
L110 VSPP open.
-20 seconds. -15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Plus 5 seconds.
Lift-off normal.
Here we have a majestic liftoff of LVM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan 3 spacecraft.
P2 tracking.
प्रज्वलन और सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन LVM-3 M4 रॉकेट का। यह भीमकाय रॉकेट आसमान को चीरते हुए अपनी भयानक दहाड़ से चारों ओर कंपन उत्पन्न कर रहा है। इसे हम यहाँ महसूस कर सकते हैं और यही दहाड़ है जो वैज्ञानिकों को रोमांचित करती है। LVM-3 के उत्थापन के साथ ही हमारे अंतरिक्ष यान चंद्रयान 3 की चंद्रमा की यात्रा प्रारंभ हो चुकी है।
As the rocket is soaring through the clear skies, every second moving closer to the accomplishment of the most important milestone in its mission to moon. Every Indian witnessing the launch live is content with the feeling of watching history in the making.
चंद्रमा की सतह पर अपना छाप छोड़ने के लिए चंद्रयान 3 अपने मिशन को पूरा करने निकल चुका है। वर्तमान में दोनों S-200 स्ट्रैप ऑन बूस्टर सामान निष्पादन करते हुए अपनी निर्दिष्ट कक्षा की ओर बढ़ रहे हैं।
The S-200 motors thrusting simultaneously, generating a peak thrust of close to 6,000 kilonewtons in vacuum. They are made of HTPB-based solid propellant. 204.5 tons in each strap-on. Close to 2 tons of propellant being burnt each second.
S-200 स्ट्रैप-ऑन बूस्टर्स का कुल प्रज्वलन काल 126 सेकंड का है और अभी अभी घोषणा की गई L110 स्टेज का भी प्रज्वलन शुरू हो चुका है।
Apart from the strap-ons, the core stage has also commenced its operation. This stage, based on combination
200 stages are separated
of hypergolic earth storable liquid propellants UH-25 and N2O4. Now the S-200s have been separated.
घटनाक्रम के अनुसार इस यान से S-200 स्ट्रैप-ऑन बूस्टर्स को सफलतापूर्वक पृथक कर दिया गया है। यह काम सेपरेशन मोटर्स की मदद से किया जाता है। इसके बाद L110 तरल नोदक पर आधारित और विकास इंजन के साथ यह चरण सामान्य निष्पादन करता हुआ अपनी उद्दिष्ट कक्षा की ओर बढ़ रहा है। अब यान क्लोज लूप गाइडेंस के अंतर्गत है।
L110 stage performance normal.
The trajectory of launch vehicle is closely following the prediction.
Payload fairing separated.
जी हाँ, पेलोड फेयरिंग को पृथक कर दिया गया है यान से, क्योंकि यान अब 114.8 किलोमीटर की ऊंचाई प्राप्त कर चुका है। इस चरण का कुल प्रज्वलन काल 200 सेकेंड होता है और इस दौरान यह करीब 1600 किलो न्यूटन का प्रणोद उत्पन्न करता है।
We are 220 seconds past the launch time. Current altitude is 135 kilometers. In the 200 seconds of its operation, the L110 stage carries the rocket up to 175.5 kilometers altitude and imparts a relative velocity of 4.18 kilometers per second, that is 250 kilometers every minute.
L110 stage performance normal.
LVM-3 M4 रॉकेट का द्वितीय चरण पूर्णतः सामान्य निष्पादन करते हुए इस चरण में कुल 113 टन के तरल नोदक भरे जाते हैं। N2O4 तथा UH-25 अर्थ स्टोरेबल प्रोपेलेंट को ईंधन के रूप में प्रयोग किया जाता है इस चरण में।
Stage ignition is authorized.
Revolution.
thanks a lot for staying with us. We're actually cutting across to Paris, where the Prime Minister is holding some meetings with prominent personalities in the capital city of France. Remember, this is the Prime Minister's second and final day in France. He's also met the global CEO of Chanel, Mrs. Lina Nair. He has said, and this is on tweet, it's always a delight to meet a person of Indian origin who has made a mark at the world stage. We had a great conversation about ways to further boost skill development among artisans to make khadi more popular. So this is the global CEO of Chanel meeting the Prime Minister. He's also met Charlotte Chopin, who began practicing yoga at the age of 50. She's going to turn 100 soon, but her passion towards yoga and fitness has only increased over the years. So these are just some of the top personalities in France meeting the Prime Minister in Paris. Let me also go across to my colleague Sanjay Suri, who's tracking the Prime Minister's visit. Sanjay Suri, who more are meeting the Prime Minister?
Well, these are a number of people who are prominent in different spheres of life there. These are not necessarily political heavyweights, and that is not the aim. And the aim really is to exercise influence in a soft way. It's a form of soft power, if you like, where you have people who are prominent in different spheres of life, particularly areas like yoga, which have, of course, a strong Indian origin connection. And the aim clearly is to bat for India and to project India as a society with a rich culture, a rich tradition, and that these traditions are both political and cultural. And of course, these are underlined by business ties. So this is unlike the political meetings on the agenda, unlike also the CEO forum that is due to get underway shortly. This is a set of meetings to exercise a degree of influence, if you might want to call it PR, if you like, to build up a good image for India.
Yes, as far as his meeting with Lina Nair is concerned, the global CEO of Chanel, which of course in the world of fashion needs no introduction, he has talked about promoting the use of khadi, for example. So, this is what the Prime Minister does, Sanjay. He always tries to, get something from India to be represented on the global stage. And khadi is something he has promoted over the years.
Yes, and khadi is not just now, not any longer something that is associated with Gandhi and his ways or with the Swadeshi movement in India under the British Indian rule. This is now becoming trendy. Increasingly, you do get stores opening up in London, in Paris, across Europe that are exclusively khadi stores. So the real way to sell it is not to promote its moral value or its economic value in the sense that small is beautiful, but to make it trendy. And to the extent that you have exclusive designers and people very much in demand who are inclined to use khadi as the material for their design, this is something that the Prime Minister certainly would be very keen to promote, and it's something that he's doing.
Yes, and these meetings with global CEOs, business leaders is also a feature of his international visits, Sanjay. He obviously interacts with the Indian diaspora in any country he goes to, but he also seeks to meet a lot of business leaders from various walks of life.
Well, that reason is a particularly acute one in France. We have, of course, the Rafale deal. We had one already, another seems imminent. Submarine deals seem imminent, and all these are high-profile and high-value deals, and these are of immense strategic importance. But trade between India and France is relatively low. It is the fifth ranking in all of Europe, and is believed to be about half or even slightly less than half of the trade that Indian companies do with German companies. So clearly there's a long way to go, and there's a gap there. And this is intended to encourage trade and business. It is only when you have a considerable level of trade and a considerable level of investment between the two countries going both ways that economic ties become firm and have a more continuing basis and a continuing promise because one-off deals may be spectacular, but they're not enough to sustain an ongoing relationship in an economically textured way.
Yes. I leave it at that, Sanjay. Thanks a lot for joining us. The Prime Minister meeting some various personalities from various walks of life, but he does have more meetings lined up with CEOs as far as his France visit is concerned. On that note, time for me to take your leave. My colleague Anand is joining you with the right stand.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Plus 5 seconds.
Lift off normal.
Here we have a majestic liftoff of LBM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan 3 spacecraft.
P2 tracking.